Hello. The mask is back, okay? And it's a good day because I saw that Roberto Soldic, uh, RoboCop. Funny that one RoboCop lost, but the other one won. Roberto Soldic, RoboCop in one FC, or one championship, got the win for Croatia. So that's a big one. Big one. Happy days. All right, Modestas Bukauskas versus Rafael Sequeira. I think that Bukauskas is a better boxer, and Sequeira has better kicks. Now, especially targeting the higher parts of the body, usually head and body, you know. He doesn't usually, from what I've seen, he doesn't usually target the legs, although that is a part of his game. It's like not as much, I think. No, I don't think that Bukowskis should be that big of a favorite, but I do think that he also has shown an ability to take things to the ground if things get hairy for him on the feet. He even got a submission against Prachnio in his last fight when he thought, okay, it's kind of 50-50 here on the feet. I should definitely just take things to the ground just in case I get knocked out. And so, against a guy with kicks, flashy kicks like Marcin Prachnio, that was a pretty good thing and smart thing to do. So, yeah, I think I'm going to pick Bukowskis. I'm going to say a decision. And we have Nurzultan Ruzaboya versus Eric Monaco or Mekonico. I think that even though, McConaughey could be pretty good, I don't really know too much about him. And I know that he's been winning and his record looks pretty decent. But I know that Nurzultan has a really good timing on that, and accuracy on that right hand, whether it be a right straight or a right hook or even an uppercut. And he also has shown a tendency to catch kicks pretty well, especially in his first fight where he knocked Bruno Ferreira out with the catching of the kick leading into a punch. So I think that this is probably, especially considering that I believe this is short notice for Eric. Maybe it is for Nurzultan as well, but I'm pretty certain that it is for Eric. I'm gonna go with a KO finish. I'm gonna say TKO in the second, I think. I think second makes sense because I think the first is going to be a little bit of a warm up just to see how both fighters sort of react to each other. And then in the next one, we have Austin Vanderford versus Nikolai Vertenikov. I'm actually going with Nikolai Vertenikov. I think that he showed really good boxing with his fight against Danny Barlow. And Danny Barlow was this huge prospect. And, in his first fight, he got a KO, right? So I know this is like some Lucas Tracy level of analysis here, but and no disrespect to him, he's like a funny YouTuber, but he isn't known for his analysis, let's be honest. He's a funny guy on the YouTube space, but he's not like an MMA shay. But I don't really know too much about Austin, so what do you expect from me, you know? I think that Nikolai showed better hands than Austin Vanderford, even though I didn't really see much about him in his career. Um, Nikolai is more proven, so I'm gonna go with round. I don't know. I'm gonna go with round one KO. I think round one makes sense. And then this one, I was actually really considering Ricky Simone. Because I think that there is some actual value in picking Ricky Simone. I do think that he is actually being very underrated here. Um, but I don't know. I think that even though he surprisingly has the longer reach, I think that Javid being the much taller guy, it's going to be hard for Ricky Simone to find good shots to actually land. I think he's going to have the more powerful shots, but I think he's going to be just swinging for the bleachers, as they say, because he's not really as technical, I think. Although I feel like he does have the style to actually pose some problems, where he probably can defend the takedowns pretty well, and then try to do a Ayman Zahabi type of just try to land swinging shots that happen to land on the target. Even though Javid is the more technical and he's going to land the more straight shots, if you just swing on him, you'll probably land the more devastating shots. So I do think that this is a much closer fight than what people think, but I am still gonna go with probably split decision for Basharat. And then we have Nick Klein versus Abdul Malik. I think that this is going to be a first round KO. I don't think there's much to talk about here. He absolutely devastated, what's his name? Serbian guy, Duško Todorovic. Yes, I remember that fight. It was just like he had no level of success. His accuracy was on point. His straight shots, even his hooks, his all of his shot selection was so on point, and he was so calm with it as well. Even though I think he got a first round KO, it felt like a second round KO because of his patience, and so that just shows his, you know, his patience at such his youthful age is really great to see. So yeah, round one TKO. Andre Fili versus Ezequiel Costa. I'm gonna go with Fili because I feel like, even though he has a similar record, kind of, um, he is more experienced within the UFC. He has had a lot more fights and against a higher level of opposition. While they do have, I feel, a decently similar style, Maziquel kind of is a little more wild with the techniques he throws, while Andre Fili is trying to keep it a more technical kickboxing style, um, while kind of also mixing in the boxing a little more than the kicking. Um, and the fact that sometimes he tries to set things up too much that could be to his own detriment. We saw that against what was it? Dan Ige. He was trying to set things up, and then Dan Ige set him up, and then he just went for it. And it's a worry here that he doesn't have the best chin, but Dan Ige KOs a lots of people, and if he doesn't, he drops them in like every fight. But he does have the reach, so I'm gonna go with Dan Ige. I'm gonna say that he's just minorly outpointing him, though it could be a fun one. So yeah, I'm gonna go with. Did I say Danny Gay or something? I'm gonna go with Andre Fili in case I said anything different. Andre Fili, and then Ion Cutelaba versus Ibo Aslan. I'm gonna go with this is actually not what the Topology fans and what everybody picking is suggesting here. This is actually a much closer fight, and I could actually see the Hulk winning here. And this is such a back and forth. I'm actually still not sure what I'm picking here because, Ion Cutelaba, he is actually much improving with his trips, with his takedowns. You saw it in his last fight. And, his last fight was against Ivan Urslan, I think that's how you say it, a pretty similar name to Last Ottoman, and he is kind of similar in that Ibo Aslan is like the less technical, more aggressive, more devastating, more powerful Ivan Urslan, I think you could say. Maybe not more powerful, but he's more like willing to go for the finish. He's not going to give up on himself. With all due respect to Ivan Urslan, okay, I'm just calling it how it is. He should have went for it more. I feel like, especially in the third round. I mean, he was, but not quite enough. And I think that Ion Cutelaba, he could certainly get things done here, but the issue is, um, I just think that, he has shown, like, he's gotten knocked out quite a few times before. He has shown that he is quite chinny. Meanwhile, Ion Cutelaba, I understand that he has devastating power as well as Ibo Aslan. I feel like in these wild exchanges, he's not going to win them. And the longer that he is willing to stay on the feet and sort of play this game, play Ibo Aslan's game, the longer he's going to have to deal with these like big looping shots that one of them is bound to connect. And if it does, he's going to be dazed and it's not going to be good for him. Ion Kutalaba for sure can last with the takedowns and the trips and all this, and he could last to a decision. I could see him absolutely showing a masterclass, but I'm gonna have to go with Ivo Aslan here with I don't know, first round. I'm gonna say first round. I just think that Aslan, he's just too devastating with what he throws, and I feel like he's gonna have some brick wall takedown defense. Although we haven't seen enough to suggest that, he just, I feel like he has an answer. Julius Walker and Alonzo Manyfield. I'm gonna go with Manyfield. I think that he's being a little underrated. Alonzo Manyfield, I'm gonna say a decision actually. I'm gonna say decision because um, I feel like Manyfield, this is gonna be like that Dustin Jacoby fight where he is getting outstruck and minorly outpointed for the most part, or even vastly outpointed, but it won't matter once he gets the knockdowns in at least two of the three rounds, or even the big moments, the big shots. So it's ultimately going to come down to who's landing the bigger shots. And I think that Alonzo Minifield is going to come out there just looking like a statue, and then he's going to imply like a Yoel Romero type of thing where he just kind of bursts. Has a few bursts where he just comes out at the opponent and just lands a few knockdowns, which wins him some rounds, or at least lands big shots. So yeah, I find Julius Walker being the more slick, more technical, more enjoyable to watch until it's a knockdown from Atomic Alonzo Manyfield. So I'm gonna say decision, winning some of the rounds off devastation. And then we have Eugene Silva versus Bagdasarian. I think this is going to be a decision for Jean Silva. I think that people are vastly overrating Jean Silva's KO potential here. He took Drew Dober, who was freaking on the freaking um, decline in the second round, who he landed a vicious backwards elbow on to the almost the end of the third round. He took and then he was like being too playful. He was like giving him high fives. Malik Bagdasarian is gonna go for the finish. He's gonna go for like the win. He's not gonna play these games with these high fives and all these like dog barks. He's not gonna play these games with Jean Silva. He's gonna outpoint him in the majority of the fight, and then Jean Silva is gonna land the bigger moments in the second and third round, while Malik just minorly outkicks him. So I'm gonna say that this is gonna be a close fight, but I'm gonna say that Jean Silva drops Melsik Bagdasarian in the middle of the second round, and then in the third round he just lands the bigger shots while Milsig Bagdasarian is constantly kicking him, constantly devastating Jean Silva to the body and the legs, mostly the legs in the first round. But then in the second round he goes for the body more, and then in the third round he goes back to the legs more, mixing it up, and he uses his hands a lot more because he realizes, oh, I need to freaking look impressive in the judge's eyes. Ultimately, Jean Silva is gonna win, but it's gonna be a much more competitive fight than people think just because people don't know Melsik Bagdasarian. I think it's going to be a close decision. And then we have Rob Font versus Gian Matsumoto. And then we have an easy win from Rob Font here, because Rob Font, his jab is far superior than Jean's. His fundamental boxing is far superior. His right hook is going to be there. Um, all his hooks when he lands that jab and he sets it up with the jab. All his stuff is there once he lands the jab consistently, and even the uppercut. Now, I don't think that Rafan is going to be able to stuff all the takedowns, but I certainly think he's going to lose the first round. But the second and third, I feel like Jean Mascamoto, I feel like he wasn't looking good in the third round. I mean, he was, making a comeback, but I don't think he looked that good against the Brad Katona. Even in all three of the rounds, I thought that, Brad Katona landing stuff that Rob Font is certain to land on you. It's not good. And Brad Katona is, in one of his previous fights, he was using grappling to win. So, if John Mascamoto is gonna like try and implement a takedown game, against like a Brad Katona against in the third round for a comeback. Like I don't know. And even previously in the fight, it was competitive, but I just I didn't like how he looked in that fight. And Brad Katona is more like wild shots. He isn't really, and that's because he's short. He's very short for the weight class, but he's just not very technical, especially compared to Rob Font. It's just a completely different level. So I'm gonna have to go with the decision for Rob Font. And then we have Brendan Allen versus Anthony Hernandez. Although I could see some guillotines or takedowns being there for um, Gene Mascamoto, no question. Don't get me wrong. I just think that he's going to be the lesser fighter, without a doubt, in defeat. And I know that Rob Font can get taken down and held down, like against Corey Sanhagen, but I can only see that happening for one round, considering how we haven't seen that next level from Gene Mascamoto. Most of his wins have been by decision, not really submission. We have seen a couple, but it's not quite like we haven't seen that ground control from him that would suggest, oh, he's absolutely going to dominate Rob Font. So, with that being said, I'm going to have to go with um, Anthony Hernandez by decision here. I'm gonna say I know lots of decisions here now, but he could get around 3 TKO, but I just think that Anthony Hernandez is going to be actually less technical. I think he's being a little overrated. Don't get me wrong, I think he has the style to beat a Hamza Chimaev, which is crazy to say, but um, I don't think that he has the style to dominate a Brandon Allen. I think that it's going to be a close one, early especially. I think that that's going to be a 50-50 first round. Second round, Anthony Hernandez is going to pick it up. And then round three, Brendan Allen's going to start picking it up. And it's going to be a split decision to Hernandez because I think that a lot of the shots that Anthony Hernandez lands, it's going to look devastating because he's throwing a lot, kind of like the Nate Diaz style, where just because he's throwing a lot, it looks devastating. But ultimately, it's just a lot of arm punches. It's not really that bad on the the uh, mental state of Brennan Allen. It's not gonna concuss him too bad. So I'm gonna have to say that Brennan Allen is a more clean technical striker. I noticed that he lands the 1-2 a lot cleaner, especially against Nasruddin Imavov. He has a good cross. He has a good, really good elbows, especially against shorter opposition. Against Chris Curtis, you saw he landed those multiple times. And then if things get hairy, he could try. He does have BJJ experience at a high level of experience, so I think that he could try it for some submissions. And Anthony Hernandez does have a really good gas tank, but if he finds the when Anthony Hernandez is going for the takedown, when he finds if he finds a triangle or a guillotine, it is there for him. Anthony Hernandez, I believe, has been submitted in his career before. I forget how or who, but I'm pretty certain that he has. So I'm gonna have to go with a split decision for Hernandez. It's a much closer one than what people are suggesting. Lots of these are much closer. But one that the fans have right is Henry Cejudo versus Song Yadong. This one is a no-brainer for me. I'm gonna have to say around 4 TKO for Song Yadong. Now, I rewatched some tape. This one I'm really confident in, okay? Because, now don't get me wrong, Henry Cejudo does have a path to victory by control time, but am I really gonna pick control time coming from a control guy against Murad Dvalishvili to a completely devastating, completely vicious guy in Song Yadong, whom has shown, yes, to be taken down, but Henry Cejudo hasn't been a guy that's able to take people down, and Song Yadong has the one-shot KO power, especially coming with these left hook counters or these right straights or these right crosses. I mean, I saw that the left hook landed numerous times against Ricky Simone as a counter, and that counter was vicious. So, you know, and it dropped him in numerous occasions against Ricky Simone in the last 3 seconds of round four and in the early stages of round five in his fight against Ricky Simone. And then he dropped Chris Gutierrez. Now, I understand that these guys aren't the same style as Henry Cejudo, but they are more bigger, more, I guess you could say, technical in the striking department. And maybe not Ricky Simone, but certainly Chris Gutierrez, I think you could say. Maybe he's a little too patient to his own detriment, but um, you know, even though it says Henry Cejudo has a longer reach, Song Yadong has a massive height advantage. You saw that in the weigh-ins, and it's so minor. It's just a half-inch reach advantage that I honestly think Song Yadong's gonna have the range advantage for sure. And yes, his hips are there. He has been taken down numerous times. I remember Song Yadong got taken down by Piotr Jan and by what was it, Ricky Simone, a couple of times. And that's not great going into this one, but Henry Cejudo is not really a control time guy. He just takes them down to leave that threat in the eyes of the opponent. And yes, he held down Demetrius Johnson for quite some time, which is impressive. But Demetrius Johnson is a smaller guy, and Song Yadong is one of the bigger bantamweights in the weight class. I think we could confidently say that, seeing as he's outmuscled some of these other guys, especially recently. Piotr Jan was having a tit for tat jab battle, and that's really, it's showing his improvement that Song Yadong has. I'm referring to Song Yadong here because he's previously in his fight against like Ricky Simone and Chris Gutierrez. Against Chris Gutierrez, he was getting out jabbed, and then against and out kicked as well, and then against Ricky Simone, he was getting um, taken down a few times because he didn't really have a good range finder. He was mostly just relying on pressuring him to the cage, not too many jabs, and then just finding the left hook to the body, finding some other hooks and um, looping punches around the guard, around the body, and then that would sort of slow down Ricky Simone. But you know, and I could see him implementing some things like that if it gets to the cage, but I think that ultimately what this is also going to come down to, I also rewatched the tape there. People are going to think, oh, he's just a boxer going into this. For those of you who haven't watched the tape, Song Yadong actually throws a lot of leg kicks as well, especially against Ricky Simone and some moments against Piotr Jan and Chris Gutierrez as well. And knowing that he's so young, he's bound to improve against a 38-year-old guy who is certainly not going to improve and who has gotten brutally leg kicked against Marlon Moraes. I without a doubt see his leg kicking game being very useful tool in this game. I mean, in this fight, not in this game, in this fight, because the leg kicks were so brutal for Marlon Moraes against Henry Cejudo. And I understand that that's Marlon Moraes' game, especially back then, but uh, for Song Yadong, he has an underrated kicking game. It really stagnates his opponents, and so I think he's just going to pick them apart, leading to a round 4 TKO up against the fence, where Cejudo's still in it, and he's going to be able to complain to the ref, sort of like a Jared Cannonier versus a Nasruddin Imava fight, although a little more devastating. And Song Yadong is going to improve and probably end up fighting a Umar Nurmagomedov. I think that would be a great one. So yeah, that is my picks for this fight card. That'll be Mask MMA out. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.